Patterns for Pirates peg leg day 4. Our last and final day, we will be putting our peg legs together, adding a waistband and hemming them. Should be pretty quick and easy, hopefully. Every time I say that, something goes wrong. So please don't go wrong. All right, so what we'll need is you'll need your mirror image front pieces. Since I did the color block version, mine are color blocked. If you didn't, they won't be. Okay, so front and back pieces. You'll be able to tell them apart if you didn't mark them because your back pieces will be a little bit wider because they need to go around your backside. You're also going to need a lining waistband piece, front and back. If you're doing the contour waistband, you'll need that. If you're doing the regular waistband, it's just a tube kind of like you would do, or it'll just be a big band that you'll sew into a tube like you would for like a sweatshirt band or anything. And then for the contour waistband, you'll also need an outside back and front piece. Okay, so before we get into the waistbands though, we are going to sew our legs up. And the first thing we need to do is we need to take one front piece. We'll turn this camera on. I'll do it on the camera here. All right. So one front piece. Here the curve is like this. And you'll need to take a back piece that when you put them right sides together, that curve lines up. Okay. So then what we're going to do now is we're going to align raw edges, and from the tip of the down part of the curve all the way down to the ankle, we're going to sew 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then we'll flip it over, and the other side will go from the ankle all the way to the top corner here. Okay, you really want to make sure though that right sides are together and that they're lined up correctly. I've done it before where I've sewn 2 of the same side legs and then you go to put them together and it's just a nightmare. So don't do that. All right, 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you are using a regular sewing machine, you'll want to do a stretch stitch or a zigzag stitch. Again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. If I were using a regular sewing machine, what I would do is I would do the 1/2 inch seam allowance, I would do a zigzag stitch, and then just on the other side of that into the seam allowance piece, I would do a stretch stitch, just to kind of help lock that in to make sure it was nice and secure and that there was a backup stitch in case my stretch stitch or my first stitch malfunctioned. Okay, so 1/2 inch seam allowance. Usually you want to pin these or clip. The only time I use pins or clips is if I'm doing neck bands or shoulders or sleeves. Things where I need to make sure they're perfect. And they tend to slip. So that's one side. We're going to do the same thing to the other side, but you'll notice you'll have to bring that front towards the back. So it won't fold over in half exactly because the front is smaller. So you'll just have to, you don't want to stretch it. You just want to move your seam allowance over a little bit and just match it up. So you're not stretching, but matching, if that makes sense. Okay, and then 1/2 inch seam allowance. The one thing that I think I'm the worst at is doing correct seam allowances. I always get nervous about that. So I tend to do a smaller seam allowance than what is recommended, but then the garment doesn't fit right because then it's got like a 1/4 of an inch extra or something. That scared me. I don't know if y'all heard that, but something went bump. Whew, scared the bejeebers out of me. Man, I wonder what that was. It sounded like it came from over there. I don't know. Sorry, y'all. That scared me. All right. So now, if we turn this 8 sides together, here's the seam where our color block is. Pretty well, pretty good. A little bit lower here. But there's one leg piece. So we're going to do the same thing to the other leg piece. This one, though, you want to be careful, especially if you're not using a directional fabric. So I'm really glad I put this pattern fabric on it so that there's a side so I can see the right side and wrong side easier. If you haven't done that, I really recommend turning this inside out again and laying it flat and looking at it and comparing it to the other one you're working on, because you don't want to sew them the same. They need to be mirror image of each other. All right, same thing. We're just going to line up the top corner and the bottom ankle, matching up those raw edges, 1/2 inch seam allowance. With the serger, if you're new to serging, or even if you're not and you might not know, if it says 1/2 inch seam allowance, you don't want to cut it at the 1/2 inch mark. You don't want to take 1/2 inch off is basically what I'm saying if it says 1/2 inch seam allowance, because you have to remember that your serger stitch is part of that seam allowance, and that serger stitch is about a 1/4 inch. So you only want to cut off a 1/4 inch if it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Otherwise, you're going to take off too much. Okay, same thing. We're just going to fold the front over. So if you see here, you'll move your seam to the side a little bit. You're not going to stretch. You're just going to move it over, match those corners up and your ankle seams, and then 1/2 inch seam allowance, matching the raw edges. So now here is where you're going to check to make sure you made mirror images of each other. You're going to take the one that we turned right side out. You're going to put it over your hand, up your arm, and you're going to stuff it inside the top opening for your other one so that the two ankle openings, the two ankles then are lined up together. And then what you should see is they'll be right sides together. So you'll have your seam here and your seam here. You'll match those seams up. This one I will use a clip for because I don't want it to move. And then just make sure that these top pieces so the corner for your front, and then the part for your back is a little bit different because it's rounded. So what we're going to do is, you can see if you did the contour waistband, you can see there should have been like a little notch here. So there's like a bump and then a notch. We are going to sew from the corner of our front to that notch of the contour piece. Okay, aligning raw edges, 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we're just sewing around. Right, so finished. You should have the top part is open, but we sewed that curve. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open it up and flip that inside one right side out. And we've got leggings. We just need to add our waistband now. So this is going to be a little different than a typical waistband because typically the back part is higher than the bottom part, and that's how or the front part, and that's how I always can tell them apart or difference when I'm working on them. But because of the contour waistband, it dips down. So your back is actually going to be the part that's lower, and your front is going to be the part that's higher this time. So let's really quick put together our waistband. What we're going to do is right sides together. Here's my back, so you can see kind of that dip here, where that'll align the back edge. Right sides together. Just want to make sure. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll align the front to the back piece, one side there. So we'll sew the short end together, 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then what we'll do is we'll bring this front piece over to the back piece, or the back side piece. We're going to sew these short edges, right sides together. 1/2 inch seam allowance. So when it's turned right side, what we should end up is This is the front with this little tail hanging out for the back. Okay, and then we need to do the same thing to our lining piece. The lining is going to be slightly smaller than the waistband piece because the lining is going to help it give it a little bit extra pushback. So I like it because then we don't have to use elastic, which I'm not a huge fan of in my leggings. Elastic. Just making sure I've got them right at the top. Okay. Okay, same thing. We're going to line the short edge of the front waistband piece with the short edge of the back waistband piece, right sides together. 1/2 inch seam allowance on that short side there. And we're just going to bring the front over. Okay, raw edges, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we have a lining piece and a, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm going to do this right. Because in my head, I know what to do, but I want to make sure I tell you the right thing to do. Okay. Okay, that's what I was more worried about, is that V in the back. All right, so what we're going to do is our waistband outside is right sides out. Our lining is going to be inside out. And we are going to pop our lining on top of our waistband. Okay. So that they're right sides together. We're going to line up those seams. I just want to make sure that I've got the back with the back and the front with the front. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to line up those side seams. And I will pin that. Okay. Make sure this isn't twisted around. And it is. Keep saying I need to get an air purifier in here. I think there's a lot of fabric dust in the air that keeps. Okay, so I put these on wrong. So I just need to turn it around. And by wrong, I mean my front was on the back and vice versa. And I want to make sure that they are correct. Okay, so lining those side seams up. There we go. So now we can see the point for both of them are in the right spot. Now what we're going to do is we are going to sew along around this outside. So not the part that's got the point, but the top, to attach those two pieces together. 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure those raw edges are matched up. If you see me make a weird face while I'm sewing, it's usually because I'm trying to think something ahead and I'm like, wait, does that work? Did I do that right? So if I make a face, it's because I'm trying to like figure out if I'm doing the right thing or not. All right, so now we have our waistband. If you want, you could top stitch it to make sure it doesn't come apart, but okay. That's how it is. All right, so there's our waistband. It's really nice because we don't have to hem the waistband down. So now comes the tricky part. I've never done this before. So I am going to do this probably differently than how they have you do it. All right, so what you're going to want to do is turn your waistband inside out and put it on top of your leggings, matching the raw edges. So you want right sides together so that the lining of your waistband is on the outside. You're going to match up those side seams with the side seams of your leggings. This was the part where if I was making a face, it was because I was trying to think this through. Trying to think, is there a different way I can do this that I've done before? All right, so now with what I was trying to envision is we need to put this point onto the back of our leggings, right? Now, there's been a couple of different ways that I've done these before, where just lined it up and then down, and then sewed up the side, and then that creates the V. I've also done it where I've cut it, which it looks like they kind of already did that though, with the way that it's together. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Every time I do a pattern, I'm trying to think if there's a different way I can do it that makes more sense to me. So what they have you do in the instructions, let me pull that up again really quick, is align center point of waistband with center point of back. Base waistband to legs on either side of V. Flip up waistbands. Pull last basting stitch and try. Oh yeah, if you don't like it, try again. Stitch around the waist opening with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start on the side here close to the back, and I'm just going to make sure it lines up with my V, and I'm going to stitch off, and then I'm going to do it again because I'm not going to baste. I know I should baste. I'll probably regret not basting. That's what I'm going to try. All right. You want to make sure that the raw edges of the lining and the waistband line up with the raw edges of your leggings. We're just doing a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to make sure that that center point of my V is lined up with that center seam. Now what I'm going to do is similar thing just on the other side. So again, I'm going to start about halfway down the back and then sew that V. And then when I get to the point, I'll sew off. Or chain off. Just making sure everything's lined up. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip my waistband up and just make sure I got close enough there. So I didn't get quite close enough to my V. But, I mean, that's not too bad. So you see here I missed a little bit, so I'm going to go back. Oh no. I don't know if you can see it or not. This is a pretty decent V. I'm not basting. I hate basting, so. Yeah, look at that. I'll put it on this camera. You can see a little bit of this thread here. I don't know why, but look at that V. Not bad, right? Other than the thread right there, which I don't understand. Okay. So now I just need to make sure it looked like right here. All right, so let's do this then. Now we're just going to finish and go around the rest of the band. Making sure we're just doing 1/4 inch. So let's flip it up and see what we've got. Not bad, huh? And here's the back with the V. I still don't know. That's going to drive me nuts. But that. Plus, that's kind of going to be on the seat side, so nobody should see that. There we go. That's better. And then there's to be. Now, you can top stitch your waistband down if you want. I usually do not like doing that either. So up to you. Okay, but what we do need to do is we need to hem the ankles and then we're done. So let's push this back. Sorry, that contour waistband. I've never done it before. And I was just in my head. All right. So since we'll be top stitching in the round, I won't use a leader cloth. We won't need one. And then I believe it's a 1/2 inch. Let me just make sure. 1 inch. Sorry, my jaw popped. Okay, so we're gonna bring our hem in 1 inch. I'm probably gonna do more like a 1/2 inch. I like my leggings to be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to hem it. You want to try and get as close to that edge as you can. Okay, I'm going to trim these threads so that I don't run over them. Because what happens if you run over a thread is that then it creates a little bit of a space between the thread and the fabric, and usually it's fine, but sometimes it just then allows it to pull and show a little bit more. And then I'm going to carefully run over those stitches about 1/2 inch or so just to help lock those in. Pull those to the front, pull them to the back. Okay, so there's 1 ankle hemmed. And then make sure you do the same length on both sides. Unless, I mean, sometimes, like my husband, one leg is slightly longer than the other, so sometimes I'll make his hems a little different so that when he wears them, they both, I mean, it's not that noticeable, honestly. It's like a 1/4 inch. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell him I told you that. But everybody actually, one leg is usually a little bit different than the other. It's kind of funny how, I wonder why that is. Okay. Just trim those out of the way. If you are hemming on a regular machine, again, you can do a you can do a twin needle, zigzag stitch, stretch stitch. You just want something that's going to be able to move. Because if you think about it, this ankle has to go over your foot. So you want to make sure that there's enough space for it. And there you have it. Your peg legs are all done. Oh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see your creation. So when you are finished, go ahead and pop the pictures in the comments. And I can't wait. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to put these on and try them on. I would do it right now, but that would be weird. And look how cute that is. I'm loving that color block. I've actually never worn color block leggings before. So I'm really, really excited about that. But all right, I will share my picture in the comments and I can't wait to see yours. So thank you so much for sewing along with me this week. This has been super fun. It's been so fantastic. Next week, let me pull up the calendar here. We will be sewing up Ooh, Green Style Creations Lumia Zip Up Hoodie. So I had some people in the Ash and Elm group request this, and I'm a little nervous and excited. You will need a zipper, a I don't remember. I'm drawing a complete blank on what it's called, but a zipper that can completely open, a separating zipper. I'm like, So you will need a separating zipper for this project, and it depends on what size separating zipper you need. So check out the pattern to see if you need, I think it's a 26 or a 28, or it might be 24 and 26. But so we are going to be working on zippers next week, and eek, I'm excited. I've not sewn a zipper that big before, so I can't wait to see how it turns out and to have, I love those kind of zip up hoodie, like sweaters anyways, but I've never made one because zippers make me nervous, but we've been doing so many zippers in the sew along. We did the miles, we did a couple of zippers for scarves when we did the 24 or the Deck the Halls event. We did a zipper bag. I made another pair of miles for my son for Christmas, so I think I'm ready to tackle a big zipper, a big separating zipper. Oh yeah, I also I fixed a zipper on a pair of shorts that belonged to a friend. Anyways, so I think I'm ready for this. I don't know. We'll find out. But so that's next week, the Green Style Lumia Zip Up hoodie. And yeah, I can't wait to see your peg legs. The hoodie will go great with the peg legs. Ooh, I'm excited. All right. I will see you all next week. Thank you. Bye.